I have some things that I'd like to point out to you based on information that came out yesterday about images that Pima County and the feds supposedly, allegedly have from January 24th of 2026 regarding Nancy Guthrie's home. You know, it occurred to me that those dates sounded very, very familiar. And I want to go back just for a minute because I want to recap a few things that we had talked about, and that was about February 21st. I'm going to show you. And just so you know, sometimes I just need to feel the organic feel and energy of the table. You know, everything around us vibrates at a certain level. And sometimes it slows in motion, sometimes it raises in motion. It depends. Well, today I believe that this energy is really trying to come to the forefront, and here's what it is. Before I show you this, again, in the month of January, the number one searched, I'm going to say name on Google Trends was Nancy Guthrie. It spiked 100% coming out of Grand Junction, Colorado. Now, I know I keep going back to that, but it is related to the island guy, in my opinion. But I'm also saying that I do believe a lot of this is international. I do believe possibly that something could have been ordered internationally. And maybe that's why there's no evidence to be found as of yet. Not real evidence to go on. But I want to show this to you because it's very, very important. And I want you to remember those dates because, first of all, Google Trends doesn't lie. And what I'm giving you right now are the facts as I know them. This is not guessing. It's not speculation or anything like that. Now, just so you know, I'm not law enforcement. I am not medical. I am a forensic tarot profiler. I'm an intuitive. And this is what I've done for decades. Here we are. Let's go back in time where we talked about it was February 21st. It was a Saturday. We talked about Nancy Guthrie. We talked about the Western Union checks. We talked about all of this, but this is pre-abduction information on Google Trends 100%. Now, here's the real thing, and yes, that is PD Pink Nose in an Amazon box. So thank you to all of you who send me gifts. All right. Let's go through some of these dates. January 5th. 2026, January 17th, 2026. The images that were searched for starting December the 19th of 2025, rolling into January. So from January 1st of 2026 were images searched. But look at this date. Look at this date. January 23rd of 2026, and now we're told that there are new images from Nancy Guthrie's house on January 24th. Is that a coincidence? No, I don't believe that it is. And at this point, we've got to stick with what we know. Speculating isn't helping. It's just really, in some regard, confusing the issue. There are things that I think is worth repeating because we've got all of this interest in Grand Junction area of Colorado. We have about a 10.5-hour straight shot drive from Grand Junction to Tucson. Now, why is that important? Well, let me just tell you. That straight shot, I believe, is what we talked about, or what was talked about in the ransom note that Harvey got, that ransom letter February 6th, that said If you pay us, we will return her within 12 hours. Do I feel that Nancy was expired by then? I think it was pretty close. I think that they had to follow through with things. And that's what I'm getting. And it could have been, you see, because I believe there's more than one person, and it could have been somebody saying, you know what, I'm out of this. I'm going to squeal. I'm going to sing like a bird. I'm going to make that call. I'm going to call and say, she's 12 hours away. Bottom line is that's what it is. Why 12 hours? Well, because Grand Junction, Colorado is 12 hours on the map from Tucson into Grand Junction. Let me get that map for you. And here we are. And if you want to know what research into Nancy Guthrie looks like so far, and this is just the first pile. This is exactly what it is. But let me share this with you. This is a map from Tucson, right down here, to Grand Junction. It's a straight shot. Pardon me. It's a straight shot. Even if you take these little back roads, it's 10 hours and 46 minutes. Even if you took this one, it's 12 hours and 11 minutes. But the straight shot, I mean, now that could be a flight track right there. And that would be a 3.5 hour flight, but they didn't fly. So this is a 12 hour. Now it says 10 hours and 46 minutes. So why 12 hours? Well, you got to stop and get gas. You got to get snacks. You might have to potty. You may have to do other things. Check your headlights. Do whatever. You might be just tooling down the road, not going at a fair rate of speed because you don't want to draw attention. Because you don't want anyone to know who may be laying down in the back seat and or even in your trunk. I know. It is 691 mile drive, 10 hours, 46 minutes. I want you to think about that for a second. Now, for those of you who've not heard this theory, I'm going to put some videos in this and link some so you can catch up. But the searches did not come from Tucson. They certainly didn't come from Mexico. I'm sorry, they did not search. Let me back up. They did not search Tucson or Mexico or Arizona. They traced Nancy. It came from Tucson. One search did. And two searches came from Grand Junction. Now I'm going to tell you at the making of this video, I know that 3 names have been turned over to the authorities. There are 2 from Grand Junction, Colorado, and those 2 are connected with Google Trends. And we're just going to put this here. Because you know what? We live in a digital age. And unfortunately, or fortunately, you can't have a body function without it being recorded somewhere, somehow, some way. So 2 names from Grand Junction have been turned over, and 1 name from Tucson, Arizona have been turned over. Now, why am I so passionate about this theory? Is because it makes the most sense, in my opinion. And I know many of you have said, oh, but Zelda, why would you wait so long? Why not? Revenge is served. Here's the thing. Back in 2019, there was a particular interview with Savannah. I call it the Tomorrow Show. You all know what it is. Where she interviewed this young lady right here. And it was about this, and this young lady started naming names. Now, this guy had nothing to do with making anything happen with Nancy. But there's no coincidence, because there was a congressional hearing with the Clintocks. You know who they are. There was the arrest of the former Prince Andrew. Had a nice little pair of silver cuffs. It was lovely, and it was on his birthday too. Happy birthday, Prince. He's facing life. Why? Well, not only because of his activities that were on the island with someone, that Jenny, you know who she is, that unfortunately was given a ticket to paradise soon after. There was a lot of activity here. But why is the prince facing life? Well, because, you get sloppy in these things. And he was taking some of these guests, if you will, to the castle, showing them around. No, you don't do that sort of thing. Because now it becomes an international debate. We're not even going to go there. But sometimes they layer on charges. So that way then, if there's some way that somebody can wiggle out of one, they're not going to wiggle out of all of them. And that's why it's done that way. Stack the charges. That's my opinion. So now, here's the thing. For 6 weeks, these searches were repeated. Why? So why were they going? Why were there images outside of Nancy's house? Why did we see this wannabe dude standing out in the dark in front of her house? Well, maybe he was looking for how the camera pointed, because regardless of how dark it is in that entryway, that camera is going to emit a little laser infrared light. Minuscule as it may be. But when you're standing in pure darkness, a light, as just a pinpoint of a light, can be sought out immediately. Quite frankly, I think that's what he was looking for. He wanted to see what was going to be focusing on him. That's my interpretation of this. But why were they doing it? Why were all the searches? Why? Because this is what you do when you plan. You plan weather. You plan. Now, most of these dates are on the weekend, are on a Saturday. Why? Well, because things are more relaxed. You tend to go out more on the weekend. The week, it's a little bit more structured. You're going to work, you're coming home, and Nancy's not working outside the house, but maybe her caretakers were. But here's the question that I have. Here's the question that I have that I'm going to add to this 19th of March. And that is, how? How did the perpetrators know that was the particular night to strike? How did they know that that was the night that she was going to be going over to her daughter and son-in-law's to celebrate her birthday, allegedly, supposedly, play games, have the family? And again, I said this yesterday, if Annie and Tommaso's son was not interviewed and had a successful interview, from what I understand, he's early teens, I can't see him lying. And if that didn't happen, I would have said, I don't believe that Nancy showed up at all. So there's that question that hangs out there. Now, how did they know? because they had an operative in Tucson. How did the operative in Tucson know? Your guess is as good as mine. And we're not going to mention names. Please put initials, because I know we all love to talk about it. We all love to talk about it, and it's okay. So that's the timeline that we're looking at. You know, that's the timeline. But I believe that this all comes down. And now, look, this is not Savannah's fault. I'm not blaming her. She was doing her job. But I've also heard that NBC came back out and said no more interviews with these people. Now, do I think that Savannah may have understood that there may have been an implied warning, don't do this? Probably, and I'm sure Jenny was also warned. And that's the price that you have to pay when you become a whistleblower, not getting your ticket to paradise, but the price of risk. There's a calculated risk. And these things have happened since the dawn of creation. Somebody doesn't like what they're being told, so somebody else is going to be contracted to take care of it. Go back and think about Grand Junction. That 100% spike, not anybody but Nancy. Nancy's address was January 5th. Nancy's address was January 17th. You see how these days are flowing, or dates are flowing? And then the images search started back in December, right before Christmas on the 19th, went on January, and then January 23rd. And now we have an image from the 24th. So what did that mean? Did that mean that they were searching for images? Said, okay, we got this. We're going to go down. We're going to scope things out. And then that's what happens. That's what happens. But now I still have that miraculous question. What is that miraculous question? Well, let me turn here because, working in the big book of Bull, you get a lot. And where is that? Well, let me see. And if I don't find it, I'm going to write it again. Don't pay attention. So now they're saying that there was January 11th, January 24th, and then January 31st is when Nancy was abducted. So these were the two images, supposedly, allegedly. So we have 13 days between the 11th and the 24th. And even if you skip this date, you have 20 days between the 11th and the 31st. Where is the family looking at the... Why have cameras if you're not looking? Hello, that's my point. But now we're getting multiple images. Nancy says she wanted to get those so she could see what was going on in her backyard. Well, how can you look for a coyote and a rattlesnake and a turkey? No, not a turkey. But anyway, how could you look for all these things and not see somebody moseying around? Again, I'm not blaming the family. Yeah, you see how much we've been working here, don't you? I mean, look at this. We've just got piles and piles of notes. And yes, I'll be keeping these. This is part of the big book of Bull, and it's got numerology and all kinds of things in it. And, this, that, and the other thing. There we are. The big book of Bull. And then we have the Pima County Sheriff. Don't even get me started on him. So now I want to get out the cards, my darlings, because now I think this is really, really important. And I know what you're going to say, but why isn't other media reporting on this? I don't know. Let's see. If they reported on this, they would have to probably take it to their producer and say, can we put this on the air? And the producer would say, no. Because if you do, then our watch time might be over. And that stuff happens. Now, people complain about YouTubers. Well, first of all, this, for many of us, happens to be our job. And the fact that we're providing you a service and all you do is have to watch, and yes, there may be an ad or two, maybe more, but it's no different than watching mainstream media. And I don't know, you just might get the truth. You just might get the truth. So that's where we are on this. Now, let's get the cards out. I wanted to show you that. I knew there was a January, just real close, January 23rd. But the fact, I want to let you know that those names have been turned over to the proper authorities. And also, they are two from Grand Junction who were performing the Google search, and there was one from Tucson who was also doing a Google Trend search. What happens from there is what happens from there. We don't know. But I can tell you this, lots of energy here. I can tell you this, there's many that are that their little eyebrows are raising. And should be. But my question is, yes, the love card came out. And I know the family loves Nancy. And again, it's not Savannah's fault. She was doing what she thought was very important. And it is. We learned many things. But here, come closer, because I'm going to tell you something. It wasn't anything that no one knew before. It just was made public. If you know, you know. When a card like that comes out first, Moisha here. Yes, Moisha will be making his, you never know, you might get a 2 for today. But my goal, I just really need to show you the mysticism and the beauty behind this gorgeous tool. And thank you again, Judy, for sending this to us. There's that love card. Sweetheart. Now, do I believe that Nancy had some sweetheart in Mexico? No. No, I don't believe that. I've looked. I don't see a thing. Don't see it. This right here, I'm going to show you what this card says. And look, he's holding an hourglass. What does that mean? Well, it's just a matter of time. This is the Piatnik deck that I'm using. It's not rare anymore, but it's very hard to find. It's very hard to find. If you can find this, you may want to, it comes in a green box, and it looks like this little gal image on the front of the box. I don't have the box available. Wait, I might. Let me see if I do. No, I do not. If I find it, I will show you. But here is the box to my grandmother's Gypsy Witch Fortune Teller cards. Now, if you're going to buy these on Amazon, there are two versions. One is a Spanish version. The other one is not so much. And you know what? I'm going to put a card up here for you so you can see the difference if you search for them, because the images are different, the meanings are sometimes different. So you got to watch a little bit. It doesn't mean it's a counterfeit. It just means a different version. So that's what it is. Thanks, Grandma. All right. So here we go. This card, come on, Moisha. This card is falseness. And I love these old pictures because look, there's a little snake, the cat's going after the snake. It's like, yeah, buddy. Why? Because there's a bucket of milk there, and a snake will go to the milk. Don't know if you know this or not. I'm from the farm, and there were a few times I remember my dad and my grandpa having to go out into the field because there would be a snake or two hanging on the udder of a cow. And yes, that happens. As horrible as it seems, welcome to the farm. So this kitty is protecting his milk bucket from this snake because he knows a snake is a snake, no matter what. There's a snake in the wood pile, and that's exactly what I feel is going on with Nancy. Now, this fellow, unexpected joy, and he's got a little house in the background. He's got a money pouch, but he's got another pouch there. Could that be something like a backpack? There's a church in the background. And you see the 6 different languages that it's written in. I just love these cards. They're just quite quaint. I hope you find a deck if you're looking. And they can be a little pricey now. Here's some money. So here's the thing. Was money involved? Yes. Was there unexpected joy? Yes. Did someone get paid for their job, mission accomplished, that abducted Nancy? The answer is yes. Was there love involved? Yes. Because why not factor in when you love and care for someone when you want to hurt them so badly? You know, let's think of it this way. It's not like someone stole Savannah's Wolfgang pots and pans out of her kitchen, right? Out of her pantry. It's not that type of... This, for the rest of the family's lives, they'll be thinking of it. And again, this isn't Savannah's fault. She was doing her job and she thought she was doing right. No one can blame her. But I can tell you, you're not seeing anything coming from anybody else's outlet, are you? No. No. No, don't worry, I'm good. Because I'm not naming names and I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm here to bring awareness to you, and I want you to just not... I have to say this. 2 things. One of my dog law investigators, I call them the dogs because they sniff things out like it's beautiful. One thing they always taught me, now is not the time to be female. Because you know, we females, we get really emotional about it. We get to the point where we raise our voices and we want things done, and how dare you, and this and that and the other. Now's not the time to be emotional. We'll bring up the other one in a minute. But now here comes the judge, and I believe that we're going to have a judge step in and sign on something at this point. Now, we may hear that, because there is a judge involved. He had to be, because he was issuing warrants for cars and so on and so forth. Other evidence. And there is another visit coming. So, not to me, not to you, but from law enforcement, I think you're going to hear that they're back into the neighborhood again. Lots of information coming out from the neighborhood. I just wish some of these people would have said all of these things right from the beginning, but all of a sudden it just feels like, oh, but you know what? That does happen. When you have a traumatic situation, and I think for many of people, it's traumatic to know that their neighbor was abducted in the middle of the early morning hours. That's traumatic. And sometimes you can just not, you really try to go over it and think about it, and then it's like, oh wow, you have this epiphany and the light turns on. Yeah, so that's okay. But I wish we would have known about all of this. But you know what else I wish? I wish that buffoon who has the badge, in my opinion now, would have turned this investigation over immediately when he had the chance instead of getting butt hurt. Pardon me, that's what he did. He got butt hurt. He should have turned this over to the professionals within 24 hours. And instead, there's a part of me and I wonder if he just even did that on purpose by giving the crime scene back to the family, and then the feds came in. Well, what in the heck? You've got a crime scene now that has been contaminated. People trampling all over the place, sightseers, whatever, delivery people, reporters, media. He needs to be reckoned with, and he will. He will be. Here we are. Let me turn this around because I like for you to see the images. This is telling us the story. And sometimes all I need is the cartomancy. That's what I learned on, and it'll sometimes give you the best story. Now, do me a favor too, because Saturday night, I'm going to be live once again, 7 p.m. Eastern. That's New York time. Come in and visit. We're going to be talking about cases, and I might share another story or two of my missions on missing people. But I have something very, very cool to show you. And it's just going to kind of sort of blow you away, because it did me. It was from someone on the Twix universe. You know what that is. This is telling us here that spring is going to be significant. We're just days away from spring. In fact, Mercury retrograde goes direct tomorrow. Mercury goes direct tomorrow. We've got a little shadow period, and that's the part where we feel like we just woke up from a hangover and we look back and think, what the heck was that over the last 6 weeks? Well, that's Mercury, the gut punch. We had a gut punch over the last couple of days. Now, things seem like they're going to starting to get back on track, but there's more hidden information that is coming out. I still say that the feds may have something that they're not sharing, and that's okay. They don't have to share everything because, the perps are listening, but I think they're long gone. I think that they'll have someone, I think that there'll be someone to take somebody's place. And we see that right now going on in Utah, in my opinion. Enough said. There's a lot of frustration around this with law enforcement, but there's a lot of frustration around this with the perpetrators as well. Because let's face it, my darlings, they had a successful mission. They should have gotten paid. That's what they're thinking, not me. They had a success. The success, it happened. It happened. So we have to think. We cannot be speculating now. We have to take what we have. We can't be this, well, I think this roofer from, whatever, and they're going back to this Mexican restaurant. Maybe they just like their rice and beans. That's what we have to think about this. They're going back there because, you know what that means? They're reaching. They're reaching. So they have the information. What they do with it is up to them. There's a lot of indecision what to do right now coming from law enforcement. Now, those guys have hidden things very well. Why? Well, it's not that they're so professional. It's just that they got a head start. And do I believe that the man with the badge had anything to do or arrange this or anything? No, I don't. He has a past. And you see, what better way to plan something? Let me give you this analogy. Let's just say you want to go into a bank and take money that is not yours. On the schedule there are several security guards. 2 of them are really, I mean, they're law enforcement. They're doing this as a side gig. They're real good at what they do. Then they have one that's, he wants to be law enforcement, but that's okay. He's happy with where he is. And then you got a couple of guys over here that they make their wives pack snacks for them, and they don't do a lot of rounds, and they don't look for a lot of things. They watch the cameras, but then they go back at night and they tell the family, and they tell all these stories. They showboat it. They're the ones looking for that A&E special. Well, you see, that's, in this case, how this works. You have someone, you have a handler, but you also have someone who is an organizer that will look over something and say, when do you think the right time is for us to pull something off? Not because we need to involve them, because that is a risk. Because many times people grow a conscience. And I believe that Nanos is more political. Let's think about this. He had to be smart enough to know that he had to run a political campaign in order to be sheriff. He had billboards, he had all these other things. Let's think about that. So I do not accept that theory that he was involved in that way. No, they just used him for how he is. Think about that. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to involve him because involving anyone means you're going to split another piece of the pie. Do you want to do that? No. But do you want someone to just be who they are? Maybe a buffoon? Possibly, sort of, kind of, maybe. So you're making this trip, you're doing all this. It takes a lot for someone with a badge to do that sort of thing, even though there are. But it takes a lot. And believe me, he has a force that would report anything suspicious. I also want you to think of that. They're watching him. They're his deputies. So no, I don't believe that. They're taking advantage of the surroundings, the environment, and the situation. Why? Well, because all of this gave them a head start. Now, while I think that Nancy could be within a 7-mile radius, there's also a great possibility that she's near the Colorado River. And look that up. I'm not going to say what, but just look that up. But there is a constant water reference around her. Will she be found? Perhaps someday. I hope she is, to help give the family closure. So what does this say? Well, we have some interferences here. This person, this is an interference because, see, I'm going to tell you something. The people who were searching, the people that were looking into Nancy, could be long gone, most likely are. But what happens? That leaves the ones behind that provided them with the information. What information? Well, wait. Where's the little book of bull? I got to come back here for a second and look. How did they know Nancy was going to be there that night? How did they know that was the perfect night to strike? They weren't just cruising the area, going down to the A&W and getting a root beer and hanging out. No. It is a plan. And a plan like this has to be put into almost perfection. And guess what? So far, they've gotten away with it. But I do believe someone will be put in the place. Probably, I don't know, could be paid well. I don't know. Don't go by what I say. But it is someone willing to take the fall for the admiration of it all, for the media hype. Let me say that. So going back to the Mexican restaurant, trying to find out if there was somebody that didn't like Savannah or was mad or jealous or anybody hanging around. Hello, pardon me, but may I just please try to find this needle in the haystack? And you know when that stuff happens, I mean, look, God bless them. They're covering all bases. I'm not complaining. But you know when these things start happening, it means they don't have nothing. And sadly, without Nancy and without a medical examiner, and as the days go on, depending upon if and when they ever find her, having a medical examiner step in, you know, a lot of things happen to a body over time. What are the chances of understanding how this happened? If there's additional DNA, well, the chances get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. Hope to see you Saturday night. Thanks for being here. You know, I'll be back again with more. Have a good day, my darlings. Bye-bye.